Hey guys, it's Mrs. Linton. I am going to be showing you what we did in week 5. We read a story called Braving the Wilderness in class. So I'm going to show you how to read Braving the Wilderness online from home. So if you're at our school website, which looks like this, very pretty, you will notice there are some links right here. And if you click on where it says online textbooks, it's going to take you to all of your textbooks. So if you ever need to find any of your textbooks, whether it's math, social studies, language arts, science, world languages, it's all right here. So you're looking for English 1, and then you'll click on that because you are in English 1. But I already have it all pulled up. Um, and normally, like if you're looking for a certain story, like in this case, Braving the Wilderness, you'll click on library. Yours might look a little bit different than mine because this is like the teacher side of it. But if you click on library, there's a search bar, and if you type in Braving the Wilderness, it will come up, and then you just click on it. And then again, I don't know how yours looks compared to mine, but right here, there's a tab that says Read. So in Braving the Wilderness, it's written by Brene Brown. She is a writer and a teacher, as well as the CEO of Brave Leaders Incorporated, which teaches team building to organizations. She is best known for her viral TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability. She is also the author of Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone, which focuses on empathy, courage, shame, and vulnerability. This is an excerpt from that book. And in this excerpt, the author reflects on trying out for her high school's drill team. Now, a lot of students were confused what that meant. They thought like drill team, like the military team, like the JROTC kids, but it's not that. In this context, drill team means like a dance team or the dance team that have like flags who perform alongside of the cheerleaders. So in this excerpt, she's talking about, trying out for that dance team, using the experience to teach valuable lessons about success, failure, and belonging. Because if you remember, our essential question for the quarter is, why do we feel the need to belong? So I'm going to read it to you. You can follow along with me, or you can look the story up on your own. Well, you might need to look the story up on your own when you do the writing prompt, but for now, you can pretend like you're in class. We read it together as a whole, so I will read it to you. All right, Braving the Wilderness. When we moved back to Houston at the very end of 8th grade, there was thankfully just enough time to try out for the high school drill team, called the Bear Cadets. This was to be my everything, in a house that was increasingly filled with the muffled sounds of my parents arguing heard through the walls of my bedroom. That drill team was salvation. Just picture it. Lines of girls in white fringed blue satin vests and short skirts, all of them wearing uniform wigs, white cowboy boots, small white cowboy hats, and bright red lipstick, strutting into high school football stadiums filled with crowds afraid to leave their seats during halftime, lest they missed the high kicks and perfectly choreographed routines. This was my way out, my new, pretty, impeccably ordered refuge. So in that paragraph right there, Brene Brown uses a lot of descriptive sensory details. The way that she describes how these these bear cadets look, in my opinion, when I first read it, it reminded me a lot of like the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, the NFL team. And then, we see the word salvation, and she's talking about how the drill team was salvation. So I asked the kids in class, I said, okay, so what does that mean, salvation? And so I had a lot of responses of, well, Miss Linton, like salvation in this terms means like that's her place to get away, like her place to escape her parents arguing. And I was like, yeah, very good. Choreographed, that's a big word. What does that mean? So, choreographed in this context, it means to compose a sequence of dance steps, often to music. So, you see that a lot in dance teams, and you also see that a lot in cheerleading as well. And then again, we're going to look at our other bold term, refuge. So, what does that mean in this context? So, refuge is a shelter from danger or hardship. So, she's not in danger, obviously, but she is facing a hardship. Her parents are arguing all the time. And so, kind of like salvation, drill team was that way of escaping her parents arguing all the time. All right, next paragraph. 8 years of ballet was plenty to get me through the task of learning the routine, and a 2-week liquid diet got me through the brutal weigh in. All of the girls swore by the cabbage soup and water diet. It's hard to think of letting a 12-year-old go on a liquid diet, but for some reason it seemed normal. All right, so in this, I had a lot of students ask me, well, Miss Linton, what's a liquid diet? I cannot stress this enough. A liquid diet is very unsafe, so please don't ever do this, but I will explain what it is. A liquid diet is normally something that is done when like you've just had like major surgery and you can't eat. So the way you kind of get your food and nutrition is just through like lots of fluids. And like instead of eating chicken soup, you just drink the broth of the chicken soup. A lot of like weightlifters and stuff, they'll go on a liquid diet to like make weight, but it's extremely dangerous. It is only okay if you are under medical supervision, so I cannot stress that enough. Please don't do that. All right, next paragraph. To this day, I'm not sure I've ever wanted anything in my life more than I wanted a place on this drill team. The perfection, precision, and beauty of it would not only offset the growing turmoil at home, but also deliver the holy grail of belonging. I would have a big sis, and she would decorate my locker. We'd have sleepovers and date football players. For a kid who had seen Grease 45 times, I knew this was the beginning of a high school experience that included sudden, spontaneous sing-alongs, and the 1980s version of sock hops. So in this paragraph, she's basically saying, or she's not saying, but she envisioned that, okay, well, like once she got on this, drill team, she was going to have, a big sis from, an older grade who was going to be kind of like her mentor, and, her big sis was going to, do nice things for her, and they were going to, date football players. And it was like what she expected reality was going to be if she made this drill team. So when we were in class, I asked the students, I said, hey, like, you guys are freshmen, have you seen something in the media where you expected high school to be one way and then you came to high school and then realized it was not at all what you expected? I had a lot of kids who were like, well, yeah, like High School Musical, like I was expecting everybody to break out into song, and, a lot of like the old 80s and 90s movies, there's a lot of like bullying and stuff. And teachers who are more, I guess, conservative and stuff like that. And so they were kind of shocked to see that it really was not as intense as they thought it was going to be. So yeah, there's that. All right, I'm going to read the next two just because the one is a little short. And most of all, I would be a part of something that literally did everything together in lockstep. A bear cadet was belonging personified. I didn't really have any friends yet, so I was on my own for tryouts. The routine was easy to learn, a jazzy number performed to a big band version of Swanee, the How I Love Ya one. There was a lot of sliding with jazz hands and an entire section of high kicks. I could kick higher than all of the girls except one dancer named Leanne. I practiced so much that I could do that routine in my sleep. I still remember parts of it today. So basically, she's already kind of implying at this point that like she wants to join the Bear Cadets because she wants a sense of feeling like she belongs to something. She's, already talking about how she doesn't really have any friends yet. And so, being on this team was like a sense of belonging to her. Like she finally would feel like she fit in somewhere with, girls just like her, because she's been doing ballet since she was 8 years old. She's an incredible dancer. And so, she wants that sense of belonging to a group that have girls that are just as talented as her, and whatnot. In class, I asked the kids, I was like, hey, have you guys ever had to memorize something? And I had a lot of kids, cheer, football plays. I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, no, those are the best examples. All right. Tryout day was terrifying, and I'm not sure if it was my nerves or the starvation diet, but I was lightheaded when I woke up, and I stayed that way after my mom dropped me off at school. Now, as a mother of a teen and tween, it's a little hard to think of how I had to walk in by myself, surrounded by groups of girls who were piling out of cars, running in together, holding hands. But I soon realized I had a bigger problem than walking in alone. So, again, the authors, she's really, really not implying, but she's really making it known that, she felt very alone, going into this. She doesn't have friends. All the other kids are coming in with friends, and, they're happy and cheerful, and she's just kind of quiet and alone. So kind of, I did ask the students at this point too, based off of that paragraph alone, I mean, what do you think is going to happen by this point? I mean, what do you think is going to happen next? She's talking about how she's walking in alone. Again, how everybody is kind of coming in together. I mean, at this point, do we think, yeah, she might get it, or is she not going to get it? Well, let's find out. All of the girls, and I mean all of the girls, were made up from head to toe. Some were wearing blue satin shorts and gold shirts, and others had blue and gold tank tops with little white skirts. There was every iteration of blue and gold bows that you could imagine, and they were all in full makeup. I had on no makeup, and I was wearing gray cotton shorts over a black leotard. No one had told me that you were supposed to get decked out in school colors. Everyone looked so bright and shiny. I looked like the sad girl whose parents fight a lot. So now we're starting to kind of get a little bit more information. Like, now we can kind of start to see that, okay, maybe this isn't going to go well. I mean, not only is she coming in by herself, she doesn't have any friends, but she doesn't have makeup on. She's not, dressed in school colors. And it really implies that, yeah, she is not going to get this. She is not the epitome of school spirit based off this paragraph. All right. I made the weigh in with 6 pounds to spare. Even so, the sight of girls stepping off the scale and running into the locker room weeping traumatized me. We wore numbers safety pinned to our shirts and danced in groups of 5 or 6. Lightheaded or not, I nailed the routine. I felt pretty confident when my mom picked me up and I went home to wait it out. They would post the numbers later in the evening. Those hours in between moved in slow motion. So again, while we were in class, I asked the students, I was like, hey, have you ever had to wait for something that you desperately wanted the answer to? I had some students, say, yeah, when I was trying to find out if I made the football team or the basketball team, or if I got on to cheer, or, for certain grades to be posted. And then I gave my example. I had to wait to find out when my husband was coming home from deployment. Like, that was, and this is what I asked them. I said, well, how did that make you feel, having to wait? How do we think she's feeling in this instance? And, there was a lot of talk about, anxiety, nervousness, even some excitement, because, all those things, like whether you're waiting to find out if you got on a team or if you got a good grade, or you're waiting for your husband, to come home from deployment, that will make you anxious and nervous, but, also kind of excited at the same time. Finally, at 5 after 6, we pulled into the parking lot of my soon-to-be high school. My entire family, mom, dad, brother, and sisters, was in the car. I was going to check my number, and then we were headed to San Antonio to visit my grandparents. I walked up to the poster board hanging on the outside of the gym door. Standing next to me was one of the girls from the tryout group. She was the brightest and shiniest of all the girls, and on top of that, her name was Chris. Yes, she even had one of those coveted girl body names that we all wanted. Coveted in this sense means to want in an inappropriate way. So basically, like a cool person's name is the best way to put it. If you guys can hear my cat snoring, I greatly, deeply apologize. She's overweight and she has snoring issues, so please ignore her. All right. The list was in numeric order. If your number was there, you made the team. If your number wasn't there, you were out. I was number 62. My eye went straight for the 60s: 59, 61, 64, 65. I looked again, I just couldn't process it. I thought if I stared hard enough and the universe knew how much was on the line, the number might magically appear. I was ripped out of my negotiation with the universe by Chris's screaming. So basically, like, what that means is, like, she was trying to negotiate with the universe, saying, like, please, just please let my number be there. But then, she basically lost sight of that because it was interrupted by Chris's screaming. She was jumping up and down, and before I could make sense of what was happening, her dad had jumped out of the car, run up to her, grabbed her, and twirled her around, just like in the movies. I would later hear through the grapevine that I was a solid dancer, but not really Bear Cadet material. No bows, no shine, no group, no friends, nowhere to belong. I was alone, and it felt devastating. So not only did she not make this team, but she's having to watch this girl who not only made the team, but she's watching her father, jumping out of the car, running up to her and twirling her around and, congratulating her for getting the position. And here Brene was staring at this poster board alone. Like, her parents didn't even bother to get out of the car to ask her if she was okay or to see if her number was up there. Like, she truly was alone. Not only, she didn't have a friend with her, but her own parents did not come to see if she was okay. So she honestly felt that she was alone, and it was just devastating. I walked back to our station wagon and got in the back seat, and my dad drove away. My parents didn't say one word, not a single word. The silence cut into me like a knife to the heart. They were ashamed of me and for me. My dad had been captain of the football team. My mom had been head of her drill team. I was nothing. My parents, especially my father, valued being cool and fitting in above all else. I was not cool. I didn't fit in. So that paragraph alone makes us kind of question now the whole entire thing. Now we're starting to question, was she really trying to join this drill team to have a sense of belonging at school, or was it more to it? Was it because that she just was looking for a place to belong in her own family? I mean, dad, played football. Mom was, the head of her drill team. And maybe the fact that she was trying out for this drill team was because she just wanted her parents, acceptance or approval, or just, wanted to feel like she belonged and fit in with her parents. And the fact that, they don't say anything to her, it just really, as a reader, it makes you see that they're not accepting of her. And she doesn't feel like she belongs, even in her own family. She is very much alone. She doesn't have friends. And now her parents, aren't even talking to her about the fact that she didn't make this team. I mean, it's really sad if you think about it. And of course, that all just kind of gets approved, I guess is the right way to say it. Because this next line, it says, and now for the first time, I didn't belong to my family either. So I guess that really just kind of backs up what we're thinking at this point. My drill team story is one that's easy to dismiss as unimportant in the larger scheme of what's going on in the world today. I can already see the first world problem hashtag, but let me tell you what it means to be me. I don't know if this is true or not, or it was the story I told myself in that silence, but that became the day I no longer belonged in my family, the most primal and important of all our social groups. Had my parents consoled me or told me I was brave for trying, or better yet, and what I really wanted in that moment, had they taken my side and told me how horrible it was and how I deserved to be picked, the story wouldn't be that this story wouldn't be one that defined my life and shaped its trajectory. Sorry, I can't talk today, but it did. So, just kind of again, she just wanted her parents to to say something to her, like, oh, better luck next time. She wanted that support from her family and she didn't get it, and then she just truly felt like she didn't belong in her family, and basically that shaped her for the rest of her life. um, with that being said, when you go into Schoology, there is a writing prompt um, at the end of the story. The writing prompt is posted separately as an assignment in Schoology. The writing prompt reads like this. In this text, the author Brene Brown describes an event from her teenage years that forever damaged her relationship with her parents. What event from your life so far might you look back on years from now as having a lasting impact on your personality or relationships or your outlook, for better or for worse? Describe the event in a personal narrative that, like Brown's text, includes a clear setting, a sequence of events, descriptive sensory details, and a reflection on the experience's significance. So now I'm going to show you guys an example of something that I actually wrote in college that just so happened to kind of line up with this writing prompt. Now, keep in mind, this is not an essay. It doesn't have to be, so many paragraphs. It's creative writing. So basically, what you're doing is you're taking a story from your life that had like a lasting impact on you. Or something that was just like really memorable, and you're basically just going to tell me the story, and you're going to write it in a narrative perspective. So first person's perspective, you can use I, me, we, us, stuff like that. So now I'm going to read you guys my example of a story that kind of impacted me as well as it kind of like Brown did in her excerpt. So this is mine. And as I'm reading, I want you guys to think about it. Do I have a clear setting? Do I have a sequence of events? Do I have descriptive sensory details? I want you to listen for that as I read. Ow, this pain is unbearable, I said to myself. I have two options. I can either keep going and bear down through the pain the rest of the way to Alabama, or I can turn around and go back home. I found myself sitting in this random Burger King parking lot at a rest stop off the interstate for what felt like an eternity, debating what I should do. As the pain from my lower back was creeping down into my right leg, making my leg numb, I knew I had to decide quickly. If I continued to Alabama, I'd be staying in a hotel for a week, away from my kids and boyfriend Chris, to start my training for my job that I hate and I'm miserable at. It also didn't help that this week was the week I was supposed to go to Washington, D.C. and New York City with Chris on his 5th grade class trip. If I turned back around to go home to my house in the country in Florida, I would be home alone, probably without my job that I needed to keep to support my family. Plus, Chris would be disappointed in me. I've never been away from my 3 kids for more than a weekend before. Now, I'm going to stop right here for a second. So you kind of start to hear what my life event I'm talking about. So part of my life event is that I've never been away from my 3 kids before. And you'll hear me repeat it throughout my story, using that literary device, repetition. You'll hear me constantly repeat, this was the first time I was on my own, and that's why this was a significant event for me that had an impact on my life. I did not want to go to Alabama and desperately wanted to go home, but I knew what I had to do. I turned the car back on, flip it in reverse, and head back to the interstate. I'm sitting in the middle lane, a sign to go back to Florida on my left and a sign to Alabama on my right. Which road do I take? I close my eyes for a moment, sigh, and turn right. I continue my journey to Alabama on a road that felt never ending. Not only was this the first time being away from my kids, but it was also the first time I was truly on my own. The drive was painful. I thought the pain in my body and my anxiety was going to get the best of me. After 4.5 hours plus a couple of panic attacks, I made it to the little dinky hotel in Dothan, Alabama, 267 miles away from home. I gather my things out of the car and make my way inside to check in. The woman at the desk was a plump woman at about 5'5" with brown hair and a very welcoming smile. She was a town local and had the southern manners of one. As soon as I mentioned my name, she knew exactly what group I was with and had everything ready for me. That brief interaction had put me a little at ease, but I was ready to get the week over with. I reached the door to room 218. I opened the door expecting to meet my roommate I got paired with, but the room was empty. I put my stuff down and instantly collapsed on the first bed I see. I looked around the hotel room and noticed that the room was too clean and too quiet. I didn't feel like I was at home. It was 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday night, and I did not know what to do with myself. I had grown so accustomed to chasing after the kids, helping Chris, and taking care of the house. I didn't know what to do with this free time. Silence filled the room. I had nothing to distract me. I decided to get up to dinner. To get dinner, sorry. Had I not gotten up, I would have been on this bed for the rest of the night, letting the depression consume me. I opened Google up on my phone to see what this little Alabama town had to offer for food. The first thing that popped up was Olive Garden. The mom in me thought Olive Garden would be a great idea because I would get a lot of food that would last me a couple days. I managed to pick myself up off the hotel bed and make my way back down to the parking lot to my car. Being in a strange place, especially in the dark, made me start to think maybe going out to pick up food isn't the best idea because I'm on my own if I get lost. After taking a minute to myself, I overcame the fear and started towards Olive Garden. I tried to follow the directions to the best of my ability, but I still got lost. After a 5-minute detour, thanks to my horrible direction following, I made it to Olive Garden. Walking into Olive Garden was the first time I felt like I had never left Florida. I sat down on the bench waiting for my food when a flow of flashbacks hit me like a ton of bricks. The last time I went to Olive Garden was a couple weeks prior with Chris and our girls. We had such a wonderful dinner as a family, filled with great food and precious family memories that were created. One memory from that dinner that hit me was when our daughter Lily said she had a joke for Chris and I. Now here's where I go from talking about my current situation to giving a little bit of background information, and then I go into a flashback, and then I bring it back to my current situation. It makes creative writing more interesting, and it's amazing when you can pull it off correctly. Alright, so Lily is Chris's daughter and the oldest of 3 girls. She's our little tomboy. When I first started dating Chris, Lily was very standoffish at first, which was fine. I knew she just needed time to adjust to this new woman in her and her dad's life. Now, Lily is my little buddy. She always has to be at my side so she can spend as much time with me as possible. She even refuses to let Chris help her with her homework because homework had become a Lily and I event. I was afraid how she was going to take me leaving for a week without her. Thankfully, she had the distraction of Nana to keep her mind off of it. At dinner, Lily starts her joke off by saying, "Daddy, Megan, why did the chicken stay on the slide for 5 minutes?" Now, keep in mind, Lily at this age, she was about 8 or 9 years old, and she's just something else. Chris and I looked at each other puzzled and asked her, "I don't know. Why, Lily?" Lily's response was unexpected and out of left field. Lily responded with, "Because it was dead." I can't think of any other time that Chris and I have laughed that hard before. As the memory faded and I came back to reality, I felt a single tear drop down my face. I looked up and realized the girl had been standing there for a good minute with my food. I apologized for my little space out, thanked her, and began my way back to the hotel. The end. So you'll notice from my example that my life event was the time that I was truly by myself. Like, I had to figure out what was going on, and I had, obligations that I was expected to do, and I had to do all this, like, on my own. Because keep in mind, I'm from Los Angeles, and, I did grow up in a really privileged family. I never really had to do anything. I was never really on my own. Either somebody else did everything I needed for me, or, I always had help somewhere along the way. But this was the first time that, like, I had to go be by myself and be away from my family. So that's my life event that impacted me. And then hopefully when you were listening, you noticed that I had my clear setting. descriptive sensory details. So now what you're going to do after this video, you're going to go onto Schoology. You're going to open either like a Word document or a Google document, and you're going to write your narrative prompt response. And like I said, I'm not expecting so many paragraphs. I'm not, expecting anything major. I just want you to tell me a story that had an impacting result on your life. Now, I did have a lot of kids who were like, oh, Miss Linton, like, I can't think of an event. And so what I told them was, are you a part of anything? Like, are you on a sports team? If you've played a sport before, like, tell me about your first game. Were you nervous? Were you excited? Did you guys win? Did you lose? What about like maybe a family vacation? Did you go somewhere that you absolutely loved and, maybe that had an impact on your life because you got to experience something like that. Or maybe you went somewhere and it was just like the worst trip of your life, just tell me about it. And again, I kind of had some kids who were like, well, I really don't know. So I was like, okay, well, do you have any siblings? Like, has any of them ever done something really nice for you? Or has your parents done something like really nice for you that was memorable? Have your siblings ever made you so angry because they did something to you or did something nice for you? Basically, tell me a story from your life. Make sure you have a clear setting. Make sure it has, events that are in sequence, and make sure that you have descriptive sensory details. Just do the best you can. This is just kind of classwork, so I'm not really taking it as a formative or a summative. It's just classwork. I just want to see what you can come up with. If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I would love to help you.